And we are live. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, and thanks to all my colleagues here for being on this meeting that is we call your local media. How can we help? Your Western Nevada County media. We, just as everybody else, we're going through the same thing. Different ways of working, different ways of doing business, doing much more with much less. So we thought it would be good to tell you what we're up to, and then we want to hear from our audience, and then we will see how we can do better. So why don't we start with short introductions? Cole, can you, Cole, could you start out, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do?
Absolutely. First off, I want to thank you, Pascal, for organizing this whole thing and inviting us to participate. My name is Cole Pettit, and I work for Nevada County Media as a producer, and because of the current circumstances, the temporary anchor for our news show. For those who may not be familiar with Nevada County Media, we're a nonprofit, and we operate 3 local cable access channels. We have educational opportunities in the form of internships for students and memberships for the general public. And before this had started, we just moved into our new studio and started filming a bunch of new shows and whatnot, with the news show being one of them. And since then, we've had to cancel all our other shows, send all our interns home, significantly reduce all of our hours, and we've closed our doors to the public, unfortunately. So it's been a big change for us here, as I'm sure it has for everybody else.
And Brian, what are you up to?
Well, very similar story. Thanks again, Pascal, for organizing this and all the town halls you've been doing. It's been great to be able to partner on that and be able to share those conversations across the community. And my family thanks you also for giving me a reason to shower and shave and get clothed again.
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
You know, we've had a little bit of practice with working remotely at the union, where I'm the editor and I'm also editor of the Sierra Sun. Through the power safety shutoffs, if we had lost power in the past, you know, working remotely anywhere we can have internet access is something that we can do. So there's a little bit of experience with that, and really it's the biggest issue that I deal with is just the internet speed here at my home, which is I'm down in South County in a little bit of a rural area, so it can be kind of sometimes similar to dial-up days. But we're working on, you know, covering everything that's going on a daily basis in the union and at theunion.com. We've also got a series that we're going to be kicking off on April 27th, looking at each segment of our community and how it's been impacted. So we're going forward. Obviously, we stopped Monday print editions for the time being as a cost-saving measure to keep things afloat. That's been a big change. Certainly. Kind of shows seriousness of the issue. But I gotta say that I've been really pleased with our team and the way that they pulled together and got the job done, and we'll continue to do that.
Allie, what about you?
Yeah, my name is Allie Lightfoot, and I'm the general manager at KVMR Community Radio, located in Nevada City. And normally we have about 200 volunteers that are helping us provide our programming day after day, all of our music and public affairs programming. And right around the time the governor issued the stay-at-home order, we sent all of our volunteers home, and we're operating now with just 12 staff members and a handful of volunteers. And it's been a challenge, but some nice discoveries have come out of it as well. We've established a core of volunteer reporters at this point that are providing our top of the hour reports, made up of some people who had experience reporting or had a background in journalism. And that's been one of the highlights, I would say, of what's come out of this. We established beats with this group of people so that we could cover all the important issues in a better way after we sort of determined what those issues were. And we're providing a lot of state and regional news through programming, through the governor's updates and KQED's forum, and just trying to keep people educated.
Great. And Steve, since you are in the same shop, what are you up to?
Trying to stay out of trouble. No, we've had a really good start, I think, to our programming, considering we're doing mostly archived shows, but we came up with a way to have the host be on via phone, at least for part of the show, to just connect with their audience on a regular basis. And we've also started a feature that Allie was instrumental in, called Reports from 6 Feet Away, where we're inviting people to call up and tell us how they're making it through the events that are going on here. And I think that's been pretty successful. We're getting more and more people participating as we're able to get these on the air. So and like Allie was talking about, the top of the hour reports, we've actually been doing those for years, but now we've really made it so that it's literally, if it's not every top of the hour, it's every other during the day.
And Don, life must be really quiet for you.
I wish I could say it was quiet. It's I thought with not having to commute anymore, and I thought with just driving to work and all the chit chat Brian and I do between our offices, I thought I'd have all this time back, and it's really been a get up at first thing in the morning, and then it's been go, and by the time I go for a run in my neighborhood, I've been exhausted, and I think the fatigue is probably just from how this has been wearing on everybody. And I know I'm not unique because our staff feels it, and I'm sure that others do as well. So yeah, it's hard. We're busy, and there's like Allie said, there's a lot of lessons in here too.
And Jeff, are you with us? Jeff, can you hear?
I am here.
Good. So tell us, what is KNCO up to? How's your day?
Well, just trying to keep people informed as best they can. I'm really sorry I missed the first few minutes. So this is my first Zoom encounter, so I apologize for all of the difficulties. I connected fine, but couldn't see or hear you for a little while there. But KNCO, we're just trying to inform people as best we can. We have had, I will say this off the top, that when the shelter in place and the lockdown and all that got started, I thought, well, we're not going to have much to talk about in a couple of days. And that certainly hasn't been the case. But there's been all kinds of aspects, from whether it's businesses closed to events canceled and everything else. So we're just trying to keep people appraised the best we can. And now we're starting to, look, and I think that's part of what this is all about, Pascal, is to find out what our listeners want.
There, if I could unmute myself, that would be helpful.
Oh,
yeah, pretty much the same here. Of course, we are, of course, the smallest outfit, but between Susan and myself, we're trying to keep up with the coronavirus coverage, of course, answering people's, I wouldn't say fears, but there's a lot of questions, and actually got a bunch of questions and at the town hall email address. Some of them that I can tell you right now that we media cannot solve. We're not the ones that will be able to open the golf courses, but what we can do is tell you when the golf courses will reopen, if they reopen, when it's safe to. I think the whole news universe, both nationally and locally, has, of course, we all have lost revenue. We all have lost quite a bit of capacity because, I mean, just like Brian, I couldn't do this webinar from home. So I'm very grateful that Sierra Commons, which is closed right now, but we have a secondary office there, and that's where I'm right now, to actually have the connectivity to be able to work from anywhere, which is what we are fortunate as an online platform, digital platform, to be able to do that. But I have to say that what I would like to talk or have each of you talk about a little bit is also the plans for the 2-3 months out, when we have more than just COVID and restrictions for that, but we'll get into fire season. We might get into another round of PSPS, and how we're going to deal with that, because that's going to be incredibly hard. Who wants to go first? Well,
Okay.
good, Brian. Thanks for volunteering.
Sure. Hey, one of the things that we're looking at, with our coverage, I'll let Don talk about our financial side of this, but the reason that we're going to be, with this series that we're going to be doing on the impacts of each of our segments of our community, the one we're going to start with is the economy. And obviously, the health aspect on this is very important, and we're going to dig into that likely the second week, but we kind of feel like we need a little more time to get a better idea of what that looks like in this region around that time. But with the economy, I think about our small businesses, and you mentioned the power safety shutoffs, to think that they're still somewhat reeling from the October shutdown, so to speak. Now we're in this, and then very likely they're going to be dealing with power safety shutoffs again this year. And it's just, that's a lot to deal with. And operating a business is tough enough to begin with. So we're going to look at that. What is the impact on our local business? What resources are there to help them during the struggle? For people who need to file unemployment, how do they go through that process? There's a study that came out, I saw today, from Smart Asset, and I'm not real familiar with them other than they're a financial company, but they rated California counties by dependence upon small businesses. And Nevada County, on their rating, is second to only Marin in the entire state. So we know how dependent we are on these small businesses, and not just for the products and services, but also, how they support fundraisers, nonprofits. In short, we know that if they're hurting, our whole community is going to be hurting. And I really think it's important for us to focus on that, to encourage people to shop local, to support them in any way they can. It's heartbreaking to see some of these businesses, people we know, really struggling and not sure they can emerge from this and still have their business open. So that's our first focus with our coverage. And like I said, that's going to be starting here about another a week from Monday. But on the financial side, I know that we've had some recent good news, and I'll let Don kind of speak to some of that, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, so we just benefited from the federal loans, the payroll one. So it's kind of weird for us in that it's a way to keep people from being unemployed, but it's we are basically filling positions that we had to drop as the economy went south on us, and we took 20% pay cuts, and we reduced our hours by 20%. So we brought all of that back, and then we're adding back positions that we'd taken away, and then redirecting those resources, those people, I should say, from jobs where they still don't have enough to do, and getting it into things like coverage, which seems really important right now, and cleaning up news racks and that sort of thing, and other sorts of planning, sales plans, marketing plans for summer and fall and beyond. And then on June 8th, it's like we turn into a pumpkin And all that funding will stop, because if we go any farther than that, then we will need to pay it back. And we're not in that position to pay those back. So we're taking this little shot of adrenaline, trying to get the most lasting effect out of it. And then hopefully we'll be back a little bit. I mean, we're down, projecting this month to be between 40 and 50% off our revenue. And that's, there's businesses in a lot worse shape than us, but that's death, basically. So hopefully we'll be across an abyss and figure out how to help our businesses on the marketing side of what they do. And hopefully our reporting will have a boost that helps the community through this particular period, and then certainly helps us too. So yeah, that's where we're at. Not sleeping at night.
Yeah. What little sleep we all get. Jeff, how are things at KNCO? Because you are solely supported by advertising.
Well, yeah, and it's a problem. I mean, I think that the union can relate as well. Advertising, and I don't have all the numbers, but advertising, of course, is way down. If businesses aren't open, they can't advertise, and so that's affecting KNCO. We are a small business as well, so it's we've actually had to furlough some part-time work here, and hopefully that's all that's going to happen. But I think the union's in the same boat, but we've got that problem. And so one of those people is a news reporter, or at least a part-time news reporter, who at least can come back from time to time to fill in on vacations and things, but that hurts our news coverage. And then of course, not having revenue coming in, that's going to affect our programming and our staff here. So it's tough, and we don't know, when it's going to get better.
And Ali, how's KVMR holding up?
Well, we're also in a similar situation. We have about a fourth of our annual budget comes from underwriting. And of course, we lost about half of our underwriting contracts for March and April. We also do a lot of events as fundraisers, Celtic, and we also have a summer concert, and we do a lot of outreach and initiatives that happen at outdoor events, and all of those things are canceled. So we discovered that we're about $200,000 missing from our budget suddenly. So we've been doing some things to try to figure out how to get loans and grants and things like this to help us. We also, looks like we're going to get the payroll protection loan is going to come through for us. We had to restructure how we were doing things as well. We suddenly had the most important thing we could do was produce programming. So anyone with any production skills or news skills, they were very much needed. In fact, needed more than ever before. Whereas people who were working on events and things like this suddenly didn't have much to do. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out as our economy bounces back and as events start happening again in our community, because I think they're important to our community. We're gonna miss our live music events. In terms of coverage, as I said, we sort of developed beats for each person to cover. And two of our reporters, Joyce and Steve, are really looking at our local and regional and statewide economic issues. And so we hope to keep covering that throughout this entire event and bringing people important information in those areas. We're all sort of dependent on each other. So of course our local economy affects everyone here, and we all have a vested interest in how that goes in the next few months.
And Cole, how's NC Media doing?
Well, I can't speak to a ton of the specifics about what's going on, but I know we're in a very similar position to where everybody else has been. We have significantly reduced our hours for a large portion of our staff, and we're doing what we can do with the least staff that we possibly can and the least man hours that we can make it, but we still want to provide a quality service to our community. We have, I believe, qualified for a loan as well in a similar vein that you guys have been talking about. And that the fact that we have is really the only reason we're still here and haven't had to completely shut down all of our production at all. So that's the basics of it.
Yeah, I think everybody is pretty much in the same situation. I know that we did not apply for the paid protection loan because, well, we are really too small for it. So for us, it's the subscribers. I can completely understand that people have to feed their families first. It's totally, and if somebody tells me that they have to cancel their subscription, I get it. It's hard. It's hard for them. It's hard for us. But I think that, yeah, a revenue drop is definitely there. And of course, the advertising, the local advertising. However, we're also working on when there is the big Nevada County relaunch, when we all can go out in some way, shape, or form. We'll find out how that is, and if we can, and once the restaurants set back up with, say, half the tables they have now and all that, we'll find all the details out whenever that is. But I think that it is so important, like Brian said, local business is incredibly important for Nevada County, and whatever we can do, I think we're all going to work on that and do whatever we can do, and that's going to be a big portion of what's going to go on. I have maybe we can switch to some of the questions that I get, and I'm sorry we can't do anything about the golf courses. That's not for us. But Rory asked, when we all started paying attention and reporting on coronavirus, when did that start, and what else, and what prompted us to start paying attention to it? So I know that for us, we're signed up for the WHO releases, and all of a sudden there was this coronavirus was popping up every day in their reports, and they started sending out. So it was, well, I think late January when we started paying attention to it and actually started to cover it, mostly with very scant information, some of the science that came out. And of course, science is what is going to get us through this. So fingers crossed that everything's going to go as good as the latest testing. And for somebody asked, when will we publish that there is an antigen test? Well, there is no antigen test right now. So that's why you can't get a test to see if you had COVID and are now immune. That test does not exist. But when did you guys start paying attention to COVID? Ali?
There we go. Well, we actually had one of our broadcasters brought it to our attention really early. I'd been seeing some news reports, but of course, when you're at a community radio station, you have a lot of close contact and microphones and things like this. So our broadcasters were concerned early on, and we had a broadcaster say, "What are you gonna do about this?" In mid-February is when we started paying attention to it. And every day I think about that and think how grateful I am that she brought it up. That's Catherine Brebsky asked us about that. And so we went out and I bought a bunch of, wipes and all kinds of things to start keeping things clean in our studios. We started researching what you do with the microphones to keep those contaminant free. And then we just started following the news. And right after that is when one of the first cases in Sacramento happened. And so then that's when we started really getting serious about what we were going to do with our programming. If we had to send away our volunteers, how are we going to program? And we started working with our engineer Buzz and Felton Pruitt and Sean Miller, who's our music director, on how we were going to create the programming. And they really started getting ready for it right then, towards the end of February. So by the time March rolled around and it was time to shut the doors, we were actually pretty prepared, thanks to our volunteers, asking questions basically. And they continue, our volunteers in our community continue to lead us. It's really from their questions and suggestions that we do really anything that we do at KVMR. So they've been very helpful through this process.
Brian, Cole, anybody?
Sure. I think that we obviously have wire coverage from the Associated Press throughout January and into February before we started really getting into it on the local level. There were releases coming out of the county with advisories and what you should do to prepare yourself, take precautions. I was trying to think exactly when we had our first brainstorming session on where we were going to go with our coverage. And I think it was actually earlier in the week of Governor Newsom issuing the order about bars and pubs limiting visitors or shutting down altogether. That we started talking about this. And one of the things we wanted to do then, and we're still trying to do now with our upcoming series, is what different aspects of our community were being hit by this. And, so from the school's perspective, down to how do we deal with people who are dying, not necessarily of coronavirus, but of people who are dying in our community, and how do you have services for them, and how do you grieve for them? So we had a really good discussion with the reporters and editors, and started to plan out that coverage. And then really the week, I think the Monday after that order came out, we kind of hit the ground running with stories every day and just updating as we gained more information from our local governments. So I would say that it was sometime in after St. Patrick, or it was late February into early March when we went full bore on our coverage on the local level.
And then before that, I'd say in February, we were, it seemed like we were just ahead of events in terms of, we had a best of luncheon coming up. It seemed like so far away, like 5 weeks, 6 weeks away. And we wound up postponing that and arranging to get our, not really our money back, but having it rescheduled. Basically, we just paid for the catering, and so we had to work with the businesses for that. And then I don't remember when we closed our doors, but it was in there because we were just starting to talk about it on that sort of with our business and other businesses level. I stopped going to the gym because my wife was going to kill me, even though I wasn't too worried about it. But it just, what really struck me is how quickly we would think we were looking out far ahead, and then things would just happen that made the decision we made that with trepidation was like, of course, that was an obvious call, and it just has picked up to this point.
Jeff?
Yeah, it seemed like it happened really quickly. I was just looking while you guys were talking about the first coronavirus story we did. On the one that I see on our website was late January. And it was cases being reported in LA and Orange County, and Dr. Cutler getting calls into Nevada County about, hey, what's going on with this? And next thing we knew, we're doing stories a day later, and a couple of days later, this event's been canceled, that event's been canceled, and all of a sudden it just sort of mushroomed. We still didn't have any cases confirmed cases in Nevada County for another couple of weeks, but all of a sudden it was more about events being canceled. And then it was kind of like, well, gosh, what are we going to report on with no events? And then all of a sudden we started getting cases. And of course, I think the schools actually talked about closing before the shelter-in-place order was actually issued, although by a day or two. And then all of a sudden you have the shelter-in-place order and everything kind of stopped. But it was amazing, and I keep telling myself that it hasn't been a month yet since the shelter-in-place order was issued. It's coming up, but not quite. And so everything just happened so quickly in terms of going from normal operations to, gosh, some events are being canceled, to, wow, people are getting sick here, to now you can't go anywhere. And then now, of course, we're trying to talk about maybe reopening eventually, but it's just happened so quickly. So I heard you guys, Don and Brian, talk about a plan, and Allie, you too. I don't think we have much of a plan in terms of how we were going to base coverage. It was just kind of what faced us every day, and I would wish we were more organized than that, but it was just kind of it kind of hit us over the head pretty quickly.
Nicole?
Yeah, again, I have to echo what a lot of everybody else was saying. I mean, personally, I had been watching some of the news stories coming out of China and whatnot since January. And then it sort of started to become a little bit real for us in the middle of February. And we were talking about it a little bit and what we might do. And then everything just happened really quickly. And this is only, let's see, the end of the 4th week of us doing this news show. And that all basically coincided with the shutdown, and everything happened all at once. So yeah, it's been a big adjustment for everybody around here.
No, I think if anybody tells me that they did not have to adjust to something new and different, I mean, I won't believe them. We have a question from Anne, who thanks us all for our coverage. Hey, all of us, nice. And she's asking if there is a fund where people can support both the media and other businesses. And of course, the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday approved the creation of the Nevada County Relief Fund, and I believe that probably by tomorrow that website will go live. And of course, anybody who wants to support any or all of us, I think we all have websites. You can donate, you can subscribe, you can do all these things. And the only thing I can say is that if anybody wants to support us and financially, all we can say is thank you. And I don't know if anybody else has something to add to besides thank you.
Yeah, thank you sums it up. And I think it's one of the things that's great about here is that we have a lot of different news media. I mean, we have radio stations that still go live with local coverage, which is somewhat unusual, and certainly the public television. And I would just say, yeah, help whichever entity it is, help them out for sure, because we're at that point. Who would have thought? But my first paper up in Plumas County in Quincy just closed. So that's happening a lot.
It's happening a lot. There's a lot of, and even the really large papers that have mandatory furloughs, etc. So yeah, but I think that we're all here for the community, and we'll do what we can to support the community in any way we can. And so if there is a way for you guys to return a little bit of that support, we're definitely happy about it. We have a question from Kathleen, who says that she really wants us to put pressure on the Nevada County Public Health Officer to require every business that is open right now to wear face coverings and masks. Right now, Dr. Cutler has issued guidance that it should be done. It's not an absolute mandate as far as I know, unless somebody has different info. But I think it's the, yes, you should cover your face. And she gives some examples that of where employees are not covering their face. Of course, here's the other thing. If you go into a business, you also got to ask yourself the question, is this really essential? I get it that everybody has to go get groceries, totally get it. But if you can do it a little less frequently, that's probably good. It's good for you. It's good also for all the now essential workers, the grocery clerks, everybody who, healthcare workers, of course, our first responders. So it's a little personal responsibility. And I think that if we have the personal responsibility, then as a community, we can also take a little more responsibility and get to it faster. That's just my 2 cents.
I might add, it's not mandatory at this point, but it's the neighborly thing to do. Someone used that word with me years ago about something we had done at the union. They didn't think it was very neighborly, and it stuck with me.
That was before Mr. Rogers showed up.
Yeah, okay. Touche. But I think that's just thinking of others, being kind. And that's a kind act to do, is to cover your face and to limit your contact with other people. We do have people who are still working in the office at the union. And one thing we're trying to do is limit our visits to the union. So we're not necessarily maybe bringing our contacts in with those folks. So it's just thinking of others. And I think that, typically Nevada County does really well at that. And I would hope that would continue with this.
One other thing is this is a topic that we can bring up with our editorial board. So the editorial board that we have is Brian put it together long before I showed up in 2016, but it's 12 to 15 people from the whole political realm in the community. And it's a place where they communicate, or we communicate by email now, but also with, we were having in-person meetings. And it's a remarkable place where people of vastly different worldviews can actually talk to each other and talk through these issues and actually come out with at least a semi-cogent editorial position every week. And certainly this very subject is one to bring up with that group.
Anyone else?
I'll jump in here if that's okay. I wanted to address, I think it was Kathleen's question about a media fund and helping us out.
That was Anne's question, yeah.
I think the best way to do that is advertise. You don't have to just whether it's in the paper or whether it's with us or whether it's a mention on KVMR, whatever it is. Just I think, and not only that, you get kind of a, and that's one of the things I think our account executives do. We'll tell people that not only would you help us out in this situation, but you're also getting yourself out there. So you get a little bit of a, kind of a 2-for-1 there. But if you're just thinking about helping us out, we certainly could use it. But that would probably be the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that actually people can do would be is that if you are in a position to take out some ads, you can take out an ad for your favorite nonprofit. I'm pretty sure they would appreciate it. So that's something. I'm sure that this time we're all very flexible when it comes to taking in any revenue. Steve, you need to unmute yourself. Let me help. There. Now you are.
Oh, okay. I went home very, very happy last night because our membership director, Adriana Kelly, told me that we got $1,700 in unexpected gifts yesterday. which including two $500 contributions, and and we have to feel that we're still providing a great service. In fact, even more services than we have in the past, I think, to some degree, particularly when we're only dealing with about 10% of the people that are on the air. But so it just put a smile on my face because I came out of nowhere, and so that makes me hopeful that our next membership drive we'll be receiving a lot of gifts like that as well, because it's crucial for us. As Ali says, we're looking at a $200,000 deficit, and that's not easy to make up.
Yeah, I would just add too that it's really our community that is gonna that's essential right now for all of us. It's we've sort of lost our other sources of income, so we're very dependent on our own community to help us through this process, and we want to be there for you in a bigger way as well. Really, this is what community radio and public media was made for. When public media started, it was really began because it was supposed to promote public safety, education, and civic responsibility. So that's why it was funded by public tax dollars. And that's our primary goal right now, is to get information out that serves our community in that way. And we so appreciate the community helping us out in the way that they did yesterday when we sent out that newsletter. And we will have a pledge drive coming up in May, hopefully. So yeah, that's how we'll be looking for our support.
And you know what? I just saw that in the chat. We have Rory, who's one of the attendees, but we're going to have Rory will be now promoted to panelist. So now please do come and join us, Rory, from the Tahoe Truckee Media, which is NC Media's equivalent on the east side. Hey, Rory. Hello.
We're going to unmute. There we go.
There you go. Welcome.
Hello, comrades. Fascinating conversation. Thanks for letting me join. We're in a kind of unique situation because we are located and sort of run under the auspices of Tahoe Truckee Unified School District, and we're located on the Truckee High School campus. So as far as we have two staff members, but we are both still working full time, which is great. Although we don't spend much time at the studio. But what we've been doing is retooling, starting with, mid-March as meetings went away. That's kind of our bread and butter, is we live stream and broadcast meetings from about 7 or 8 local agencies. And all of a sudden they're all meeting on Zoom or WebEx or Google Meets or, YouTube like this. And so each one of those has its own little peccadillos, and we have to then find a way to take that conference, and we've been putting it, then live streaming it, which is it solves some problems for the meeting holders, because it kind of presents a firewall between them and the public. You don't have people sort of jamming in and commenting in the middle of your meeting. But it's it presents some hurdles too. We're very grateful to all of your coverage, especially Pascali. Several times a week we retweet and repost your Facebook news, especially weather and during the fire season. That fire season coming up is going to be a strange coverage challenge for all of us, I think. And nice to be able to join you. I didn't catch where Steve, where you're from?
KVMR. I'm the program.
Oh, KVMR. Okay.
Yes, KVMR and the union, you say they have so much staff, they can have two, they got to get two panelists. So some of us, you know, it's a little harder.
Well, as far as I asked that question earlier about when the coverage started, it was very obvious in this area that there was a lot of scoffing and downplaying of the whole threat up until February 13th. And then the school district announced no one's coming back Monday. And the next day, all the ski areas said, we're closing Sunday. And it just happened to be the biggest powder day of the season. And that just hit this town like, you know, a bat to the face. And that's when everybody got serious, like you said, overnight.
That's pretty interesting because I mean, of course the ski area is closing, and well, with some leaving, I think it was, what was it, Kirkwood who left open. You could, instead of taking the lift, you could actually walk up and ski them. But at some point they even closed that down. So now, yeah. And by the way, how's the snow up there?
Okay. Yeah, there's actually plenty up. You know, people look up at these, you know, Squaw Valley and Alpine Meadows and these piles and piles of just untouched snow that this time of year should be tracked out before 10 a.m. And it's a daily reminder of just how much has been taken away. And you know that. Those are huge employers, and so the trickle down from that is just, you know, everybody's wondering, and then the whole, of course, they were all selling season passes for next year, you know, with the bonus of skiing out this year, and that all goes away, and people are asking for refunds, and I wouldn't want to be a manager in that industry right now.
So basically, this is very similar from what we heard from Nevada County media. So your counterpart down here, it's interesting to see that you mentioned the meetings, you know, the government meetings, and the new way of holding meetings, and the various successful or not so successful ways of government officials being either at home or in an office and holding their Zoom meetings. But I think when we look all back at this, I give props to anybody who has a very, very steep learning curve with be that Zoom or Google, WebEx, whatever it is, because I think we all changed it. And to do that, do your prep the government meeting and then still get it out so that there's of course some concern about public participation and also having public hearings on large items, and we'll see how that develops. But I really think that for now they're not doing too bad.
Well, we had a huge spike to our website there was a special meeting 2 Wednesdays back, Truckee Town Council. They held it on Zoom. And you could, besides just the content, the style of the meeting has changed too, because you've got the mayor and council people, each in their own little tile like we are today. And you had the CEO of Tahoe Forest Hospital, Harry Weiss, right there. And I think Harry probably spent more time talking during that meeting than anyone else. And it was a 3.5-hour meeting. But all of a sudden he was, on the spot and fielding lots and lots of questions, both from the staff and the town council. And then they were taking email and phone questions too. So instead of just the usual 10 or 12-minute presentation followed by a few public comments, it's kind of a great equalizer when there's 12 tiles on the screen and everybody's on there all the time.
Anybody want to chime in with the way we cover meetings now?
I'm sure I'll jump in on that for a little bit. I know it has been a bit of a challenge for everybody to get used to the new way of doing it, and it's been an adjustment period. But actually, I've been very surprised and encouraged by how quickly it's happened and how everybody has adjusted very well to it, and everybody's worked hard to make it happen. And there's still definitely kinks to work out here and there, but for the most part, I think it's going really well. And in terms of some of these Zoom types of things, we're working on, now that we're getting a little bit better at doing it, we're working on trying to put together a little bit of a program to help educate the public and everybody else that's using it to try to make it a little bit easier. So that should be coming in the near future.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I guess my Zoom learning curve is about 20 minutes, so I apologize for that. It took me almost half the meeting to get my video up and running, but I heard most of it. But I think the only worry is if you've been watching Board of Supervisors or some of the city councils and everything, it seems like they've kind of learned a little bit how to do the Zoom meetings and everything. But the problem is going to be, and especially if this keeps dragging out for a few more months, public comment. And when it comes into a controversial issue, whether it's in Grass Valley or Nevada County as a whole, or up in Truckee or Nevada City or wherever. And so I think that when you might otherwise have a contentious meeting or lots of people attending to speak their minds for their 2 or 3 minutes, when you do it by email or a chat or some sort, that's not really going to carry the same weight. And we got a couple of those issues coming up, and it'll be really interesting to see how that's dealt with.
And in the same vein, we get a very nice comment for all of us from Terry McMahon, who is, of course, with Nevada County Consolidated, who actually appreciates what we do and also is reminding us that they are working really hard to adapt to these the new circumstances. It's not the new normal anymore. It's the new abnormal, the new change. Don't know what we're going to call it. Some call it the thing, but we'll have to come up with a good tagline for it. But he's also saying that since they are preparing, and our job, of course, being to keep the public informed in case that there is an emergency on top of the pandemic. So, and I think we all will do that because hey, it's part of the job. And Lou Sitzer, who is, if I'm not mistaken, both on the board of NC Media and KVMR, thinks that crisis brings opportunity, and what innovations are we going to come up with? I mean, as far as Ubernet is concerned, we shall see. Yeah, sure, there will be innovations, but for now, can we just kind of sort of stabilize ourselves? That would be nice.
I should say too that pandemics have an arc to them, and they do end. So this isn't like how we approached the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, where you didn't know what was coming next, or even 9/11 when that hit, and the fear that just lasted for years and years. I mean, we'll be afraid of pandemic as we always have been, but this definitely has an arc. So I've been telling my family and our crew at the union my thought that when we look back, this is going to seem like a very short time, but it feels like forever now just because of the uncertainty from this seat. But it, like 1918, and it's going to come to that other side. And then I think, Pascal, you mentioned about, you know, where are we all going to be community-wise, and certainly as media, you know, what happens being like Phoenix is coming out, because there is a lot of change. Like, I mean, for us, it's pushing that transformation from print, which has held on for 450 years or so. We've had a great ride, onto the online side, and how not only we build on our audiences, but how we figure out how to make viable businesses out of that. So that's a lot of what's in my mind. You know, what we look like on the other side of this.
Yeah, it's gonna be. We'll all probably look different, but I'm a little optimistic, because I think that we're also, all of us will look not necessarily better, but we will more efficient, and some of the processes that I think all of us are implementing right now. It's not just for a pandemic, but there are efficiencies. There are things that we do that can actually guide us in the evolution of whatever our platforms will look like, and whichever platform we will be on, because that's another thing. There can be transitioning, for example, from print to online, or just from pure digital to more, be that video, be that audio. So it's going to be really interesting, but I'm fairly optimistic that we're all going to have some very more services for our customers. That's basically where I'm hoping that we're going.
Yeah, this is Ali from KVMR. I've really noticed that this focus on what's essential has been valuable for our organization. You have to pare down pretty quickly and figure out what's truly important to your listeners in our case, and what the services that we provide that we can't really do without. And so in some ways, you know, like everyone's doing at home, we've had to clean out our closet a little bit and figure out what's our priority as an organization, and what is it that we have to put more of our energy and resources into in the future, so that we can make sure that those essential services are supported, and then kind of maybe drop some of the stuff that is nice but not absolutely essential. So
I have to throw in crosswords. We had to drop our Monday pause. Far and away, what are you doing with crosswords? So if you want to drive Brian nuts, ask him about crosswords. So he figured it out, though.
One of the things that access community stations across the country are really stepping up is the distance learning model. Our Channel 6 in the Truckee, North Tahoe area is exclusively for education. And we have taken, we kind of borrowed from NPR. We're doing Science Friday now, and we do National Science Foundation and NASA programming from dawn till dusk. And we just signed up with UC, University of California Television, to do a 3-hour block every morning of instructional TV. And it's all with the notion that all the students are at home, all the parents are looking for things to keep them busy and not just entertained, but educated, and, you know, as a tool for the teachers too. So that's an area that we've been spending a whole lot of time bulking up on new educational programming. I think education's not going to be the same. I think this distance learning is really going to catch on as a permanent feature.
Yeah, there's distance learning, and then since there seems to be a lot of transition to everything digital, and one of the things that at some point we'll all have to address is well, let's call it what it is, the crappy connectivity that is pervasive in Nevada County and throughout the rural California. And they between no cell phone service and concerns about wireless, etc. Wouldn't it be nice if there could be a big push to actually have fiber coming through the areas, every area of Nevada County, and not just limited. There's of course piecemeal initiatives that are there and implemented, and some that are coming on, but that is something that might be an interesting infrastructure investment, because it's not just infrastructure. I think it's also a lot of economic development, because I got a few emails from people saying, well, I would love to be able to work at home. I can work at home, but I can't because, well, I have a fixed wireless, or I have DSL, and I can't work. So that is something, that might be something where, well, we could all get together and maybe push that a little bit to the forefront. And it's nice to nod, Jeff, but hey, come on, say something.
Well, we're part of the emergency services infrastructure now. The communications is such a big part of it. And I think there are allies out there in OES and the fire districts and everybody. It's so important to get information out when we have, for instance, fire season is a huge one. And to get services and road closures and all those things to the public, and instruct them and fill them in as soon as possible. I think we can really sell better connectivity with allies like those.
I really hope so. And I just looked at the time, and the hour is up. So let's try and wrap up. And what is it that you want the community to know, and how can we continue this conversation? Because I think we should definitely continue this. So who wants to start? Cole, you want to start?
Sure. So yeah, we're just looking to try to get the best information out there that we can. And I know a lot of the rest of you have quite a bit more journalistic experience and whatnot than we do here, but we're trying to do our best and to provide a different source of media than the community's had before. So yeah, we're looking forward to trying to continue to progress that, and hopefully work in partnership with some of the rest of you guys to get better at making sure that we're providing consistent, clear, important information to everybody. And, I think all of the mediums are important, whether it's print or audio, or in our case, video. And that's where our experience lies. And if we can partner with anybody else to help improve any of that for you, or to get messages out there, then we would absolutely love to do that. And I'd like to thank you, Pascal, for inviting us and organizing this again. It's been an honor to be a part of it. So thank you. Pascal.
Yeah.
I want to just follow that up with, for size of the community that we have, the amount of media we have, we are truly blessed. This is pretty robust for a small community like this. Mm-hmm. And I know from experience that sometimes when we've all worked together and collaborated on efforts, because we all have the same goal, we've got some success stories there from the past. And I would just encourage all of you to know that the union is happy to collaborate, wants to collaborate, play to our strengths, lean on those who have their own strengths that maybe we don't have. And I just think that that's a real important way forward for all of us. And certainly we're open to ideas, suggestions, and opportunities to do that. So thank you. And thanks for hosting this.
I'd like to virtually thank you as well for putting this together, Pascal. But one thing I think I see and hear radio that's okay and maybe not so okay every day, but on the other hand, I see and hear innovation every day, and it's that's what we want to capture and bring more of it to our listeners, and this is one way of doing it. By broadcasting each of these meetings, we're adding to the conversation and the dialogue, at least among our listeners. And thanks again for doing this.
I would love to put a call out to our KVMR listeners to add their perspective. And we have a hotline for that. It's the Reports from 6 Feet Away. The number is 530-264-4160. As we've been getting more and more people calling in and telling us what they're experiencing and what their observations have been, it makes our programming better. It makes it more interesting, and we're learning more from each other by hearing your voices. So in addition to all your financial support and all the other amazing things you're bringing to the table, we want to hear your voices. That's our goal as a community radio station, is to be the voice of the community. So give us a call.
I would say to everybody on the west end of the county that we're up here over the divide, but we intermingle a lot at various different events, and we'd love to have you visit us at TahoeTruckieMedia.org and get to know us.
So I from this, I hear masks and connectivity as two things to take up in some sort of concrete way. And one of the things I should say, having worked in community journalism and then sort of at the metro level a little bit, the community level is far superior in my mind, simply from the participation of the community. Like I think we've all seen, but if you got a story right or wrong, you hear about it pretty quickly. People will tell you, and that's something that is, I guess, heartwarming in a lot of ways, because just from living here and being basically held accountable in ways that that we're not by people that are actually listening. So we do hear you. We might be grumpy about it sometimes, but we do hear you.
Yeah, being grumpy is that's just proof that actually we're also human beings, and that's something that I feel sometimes we need to remind people that we're not just the entity, but yeah, we're human beings, and yeah, every once in a while it's hard, but it's also great to see when, like you said, when people when they don't like a story or when they like a story. The only thing we have right now is that we can't stand in the grocery stores and have those conversations, but I'm pretty sure we can do this, and we can do more of these, and yeah, we will have another one next Thursday. We'll figure out what the topic's going to be. We'll announce it pretty soon. And for all of you, thanks again for spending over an hour with us. And I hope that everybody is we answered the questions. And again, if you have more questions, well, send them to townhall@ubanet.com, or give us a call, and we'll all continue to do our best. And here's a message from Jeff. His cell phone just died, so he's sorry, but he's waving bye-bye. And with that, thanks everybody, and see you next Thursday.
Thanks, Pascal.
Thank you.
Bye.